All right, folks, we're talking about section 2.2 today, and it's all about functions. If you actually want to set up your notes first, that might be a good idea. So let's see here. Give me 2 seconds. Get this out of the way. So here's what our notes are going to look like. It says, I can identify the graph of a function. I can obtain information from a graph. And you don't have to put all these numbers down, of course, but quite often a whole stack of numbers are harder to read than a picture, right? And so here's our graph over here. And I just wanted to talk real quick before we get into any details. You're welcome to put the video on pause and kind of organize your notes. You're going to see questions like this in the homework today. But let's go back over here for a second. I'm a big baseball fan. Been watching the Mariners and this season pretty closely. And there's some interesting data this guy collects. And I'll start with this kind of piece of history. The Rockies are really bad. The Mariners are going to start playing the Rockies tomorrow for a 3-game set, which could be a good thing, I'm hoping. But when you look at the most losses of a team, the 2024 White Sox have the record. And here's their graph of their whole season. They went down like this. And they, at one point, they were 80 games below 500. Well, actually a couple points, right? Like if we zoomed in on that, it looks like a couple little spots in there. And then they go below down here. This is all below 80. So they were at 80 a couple different times, maybe 3 times, below 500. But you can see the Rockies, man, they're losing a lot of games. So that's kind of an interesting looking graph, right? Here's our division, and you got the Houston Astros. We just swept them this weekend, and we have now a 3-game lead. So if I put my cursor right here, you can see in red, this is the Houston Astros, and you see the 3GB at the end of that little red label. And then the Mariners record is up here at 87-69. So if we came back here and we looked at like this point, there's some information we can get. Like the Houston Astros were 20 games above 500 on what day? Well, July 5th. You can see that down at the bottom of the little graph, right? So what kind of questions are they going to be asking us? Well, let's say this is the Houston Astros right here. We might have some A of X equation. And then this is the Mariners down here. We might have some M of X equation, the Mariners at time X. And if we came over here to, let's see, what was yesterday? The 21st, I think. So we're like right in here. And let's say this is 9/21, right? If we were to ask what is the Mariners record at 9/21, we just come over on the x-axis, we come right up here and we say, okay, here they are right here. And I don't have the cursor turned on right now, but if I held my cursor there, we could see what the Y value was, how many games above 500 they were, right? So that's the kind of questions we're going to be asked. That one's pretty easy, right? You just go down to the x-axis and say 9/21, what was their record? Here might be a more difficult one. M of X equals, let's say, 5, okay? So what does that mean? That means when was the Mariners' record at 5 games above 500? So let's see if I can turn my pen off here for a second. Well, turn the little cursor on, I should say. And if I go over here, here's 5, right? And if I just scroll across here, well, it might be helpful to turn the Houston Astros off because we don't really care about them. But we want to know when the Mariners were 5 games above 500. You could see like right there when they were 17-12. That's 17 wins, 12 losses, right? They were 5 games above 500 on April 29th. So how would we answer that question right there? We'd say when X equals, what was it, April 29th? So 4/29, all right? So how did I do that? I went to, 5 games above 500. I went over here and I saw, okay, right there, and it was, it said April 29th, right? So This kind of question right here kind of throws people off sometimes. It's really that easy. You look at the y value of 5 and you say, okay, when do we have 5 games above 500? And we went to, April 29th, right? Now, that's not the only time. So we'd have to list all of the times the Mariners were above 500. So let's go back over here again. And we come over here and we say, okay, let's see right here, 22 and 17. And that was on May 11th. And then we come over here. Oh, maybe there's another one right in there. 23 and 18, right? And that was on the 13th. So we have the 11th, the 13th. Here's another one, 24 and 19, right? They're 5 games above 500 right there. That's the 16th. What was it, 11th? What was it, the 11th, the 13th, and the 16th. Okay, so we'd come over to our answer, and we would list them all, right? So you'd say, let's see, it was, I think it was like 513, and it was 516, 516, and then it was 5, what was it again? Right over here, wasn't it? Like, let's say this was 23rd. I don't know. I don't remember what it was. So you're going to list them all, and there's maybe multiple ones. There's another one over here, another one over there, right? And you just keep going across 5, blah, blah, blah. So I hope I'm making this clear. This is how we read our graph. This means when was the x, or when was the y at 5, and you have to find the x values. This means here's our x value, you plug it into the function, so you'd go down to the x-axis, right? Okay, so let's get back over to our, let's get back over to our information over here. So what is the domain? Well, the domain is the year, okay, and then the y, the range, is the price, right? The domain is the x, and the y is the range. The domain is the x, the y is the range. So here we've got like x being years and the price being y. So you'd say something like the domain is the year and the range is the price. Okay, this is a different situation than the Mariners, right? And then what is f of 1989? Well, you come over here, 1989, 1.87. All right, what are the intercepts? Ooh, okay, so, man, this is a trickier question. Remember, intercepts are when the x equals 0 and when the y equals 0, right? We want to know the y-intercept here, and we want to know the x-intercept right there. Well, looking at this graph over here, I mean, there is no time. Let's just go to the easy one. There is no time when the price was 0, right? So like we look over here, here's price is 0, and we don't see any x-intercept, right? Now, do we have a y-intercept? Well, it depends. Like, do they call 1985 times 0? The graph that we were looking at a second ago with the Mariners, I would say, the beginning of the season, whatever that was March, I don't think it was March 18th. I think it was closer to April. So you can see here we're coming over until we get to the beginning of the season. I think, yeah, it's like right there. They won their first game March 27th, right? So we could call that time 0, and then, or back here, I guess, March 26th. This is a little tricky. This one maybe is going through the origin, somebody could argue. So the x and y intercept are both 0. But we have other x-intercepts over here when the Mariners were 8 and 8, right? There's a 0 games above 500. That's what this graph is showing, how many games above 500. And if we came over further, there's another one right there. They were 10 and 10, right? So these would all be x-intercepts. But I would say there's probably only one y-intercept back here at the beginning of the season when they were at 0, 0. So let's see. I hope I'm making that clear. The intercepts are going to be, dependent upon what the story is. So how many times does y equal $3? Well, that's as easy as like looking through here and saying, does it ever cross $3? And you can see, right here from 274 to 301, so like if we look out to 2006, right out here, and you look at $3, see how the line is going right through there? And then it looks like it stays right above $3 the rest of the way. No, maybe in 2010 it went back down to $3. Let's see if I can move the graph over a little bit. Oh yeah, so here we go. So it went above, and then it went below, and then it went above. So there's 3 times. How many times does y equal $3? 3 times. For what value of x does f of x equals $2? This is the one that I see people really kind of struggle with. What does this mean? you just have to go up to $2 and say, well, it's right here. Okay, so for what value of x does it equal $2? What is that, 1986 somewhere, right? Just like maybe just before 1986. Like if we look over here at the graph, you can see it goes from, it's $1.90, then $1.89. Oh, yeah, because it went from, so just before 1986, right? It goes from $2.55 down to $1.90. So right in here, it's about $2. All right, so we're going to answer those kind of questions. You know, if it says what's the values of x when f of x is greater than 250, we just come up here to 250 and say, well, it looks like it crosses right in here at maybe 2005. Let's just go look at the data here, maybe in 2003. So if they wanted an interval notation, you might say something like 2003 to 2014. Now, you know, you could probably put a square bracket on 2014 because it was definitely above $2.50 in 2014, all of 2014. So that's interval notation right there. This is called interval notation. And if they want their answer with the inequality sign, you're just going to say when x was greater than 2003, we had a price of more than $2.50. So we're going to be reading the graph. Sometimes it's helpful to look over the table to see what the actual numbers are, but I hope I'm making this clear. Thanks for watching my video.